Hi, once again, I'm Sydney and I am a servant of the Almighty God. In this episode regarding recognizing God's omnipotence, I want to kind of highlight for you one of the interesting things that we will recognize going forward as we stand and not only recognize that we exist in His presence, but that all that's around us are manifestations of His omnipotence. Of course, I will always be railing against this notion that nature had the intelligence and the benevolence to create everything around us. Because if we, in any situation, we have to ask, what is nature? Who is nature? And when we look at that, we realize there's a personality there. There is an intelligence and a benevolence that actually grants us things. And so it really is like equating nature with God. We say nature, but really we are looking at, because nature, and I want to focus on ecosystems, right? There is, as our science moves us forward, and what is science? Science really are just revelations, because we did not create any of the materials, the elements, right? And I talked about the great chemist Dmitri Mendeleev talking about receiving those in a dream, right? Receiving the periodic table of elements, which really is so critical. It's the basis of almost everything we create. Our medicines, all the technologies, our internal combustion engines, all of these things, it's based on knowledge of the elements. And this was granted to us. So we had evolution, which Sir Charles Darwin discovered, but again, he did not invent this. Like now we recognize DNA has been around forever. And so all of DNA, RNA, all of these things, they have always existed. They are being revealed to us. And this is why I always say that what we refer to as the laws of nature, I refer to as the rules of creation that are being revealed to us. All our technologies now are based on what has been revealed, that which has been in existence for billions of years. So it was created at some point. And when we look at the more our science evolves, we recognize there is an intelligence. Things are connected intelligently. And so when we see order, that indicates intelligence, not randomness. Okay? And so when we talk about any ecosystem, whether it be on land or in the oceans or where, and regardless of whether it's in the tropics, the poles, wherever, we see these ecosystems. And at every layer, we have things that we have discovered, some that we haven't. We go into the Amazon, for instance, there is a large, like everywhere, there's an ecosystem where things are born and they go through a natural cycle, but everything gets recycled. And there are things at every layer. So you see the intelligence, because right now we think that we are so advanced. And we are. As a civilization, we are. But when we compare to the manifestation of God's omnipotence, we simply consume things. We barely have started trying to recycle some of the things that we put out there. This is one of the reasons we're having global warming and climate change and all of these things, because we are consuming and just dumping stuff out there. Whereas His omnipotence designs, and we see that even the microplastics that are everywhere, we're finding out there are organisms that can handle those things. So in His great wisdom, He creates things that consumes and recycles everything. We are not close to that. We have to recognize the intelligence that goes into everywhere on earth. Everything gets recycled. Something is born, something dies, every part of it. We have, the vultures and that keep things clean, that make sure that, we don't have the proliferation of diseases because something is just decaying and sitting there. We have, the flies with their life cycle. Everywhere in the plant world, we see it. Plants, when they hibernate, they drop their leaves. We have things that break it down so that the next season, this goes back into that nitrogen cycle. These things are all designed. Regardless of where in the oceans we have a similar processes. These things have been designed. And so, again, as I talk about in the humanities inflection point, we need to recognize the manifestations of God's omnipotence. We need to get away from nature did this and we can't see, or just as with God, but we can feel the wonders of His creations. We can see the intelligence, and as we go forward in our science, His revelations, which are the basis of our sciences, they will lead us into recognizing more and more. And that's the inflection point that we need. Because when we go without the accountability, without the commandments, we go into the greed and the deception and the hate, which currently predominates so many religions and religious leaders. And I've talked about those things as well. I've been inspired to write about that in Humanities Inflection Point. There are many religions that are on the wrong path. They are about greed. They are about hate. They are about the divisiveness. And as a matter of fact, in the history of the world, science, and this is one of the key points of the Humanities Inflection Point, science, knowledge from God, shows us the path of uniting and bringing about the brotherhood of mankind. Religions have been one of the most divisive and destructive forces on the planet because we do not recognize the one creator and all the forces and all the creations in every one of his ecosystems are manifestations of his omnipotence. So we have to, this is where the inflection point we're getting into that inflection point when we start recognizing his omnipotence. This is so important. And so in every ecosystem, when we recognize something that we may or may not understand or agree with, because I know there are people who, a lion eats meat, well, maybe it should eat something. No, he has the wisdom to design these things so that every part in every ecosystem, we see from the plankton all the way up in that food chain. That's part of his ecosystems. We see with the birds, the bees, everything, every plant that proliferates in certain areas because of certain conditions. All of these things he has designed. And when we take a closer look, we see the intelligence, we see the specialization. It's all his design. All of these ecosystems. And as our knowledge expands and our ability to travel other places, again, we will see this. We will see the magnificence of our Creator's omnipotence. So it is important. It is very, very important that we break free of this ungodly nature. Recognize that when we claim nature, we are removing the accountability that he has recommended. He has said, I want you to obey these commandments. I give you all these wonderful things. And we have turned our back on that. We have become so ungodly. We look at his miracles, his creations, and we say it's a thing of nature. And when we look at everyone should look at all of these ecosystems and recognize the intricacies, the specialization of all the creatures, of everything at every stage. Recognize the magnificence of his intelligence and the benevolence that He has towards us, that He's created these ecosystems. Again, I'm Sydney, I'm a servant of the Almighty God, and I want to thank you for taking the time to view this. Recognize this is not a coincidence. This is a wake-up call, so that we can begin that process towards humanity's inflection point. Pick up a copy. Thank you. I want to thank you very much for taking the time to watch this, and until, may God bless.